Welcome to the Dental Decoders podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Rogars, and I'm here to help you crack the code on all things dental operations. Each week, we dive into topics to help you overcome roadblocks, streamline operations, and reduce team burnout. Whether you're an owner, a practice manager, or a team member, this podcast is for you. Join us for insightful discussions, engaging interviews, and practical tips. So sit back and relax as we crack the code on all things dental operations together. Hello, Decoders! Welcome to another awesome episode of Dental Decoders. You get a super fun solo dolo episode with Rebecca and I today. Hi, Rebecca. How's it going?
So great, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited for our episode today.
So we are approaching, by the time this episode comes out, we will be at 1 entire year of Dental Decoders, which blows my mind.
Which is exciting. I don't know about you, but I've had so much fun with all of our guests this year. We've had incredible topics. We've had incredible insights and gems shared with our listeners.
I selfishly have loved every single conversation because I've learned so much from everybody. There's nothing quite like podcasting to get you in the room with people you normally wouldn't be in the room with and just be able to learn from them for free. So I thought it was great.
There are people I connected with that I've seen or heard speak at conferences or, other platforms. And it was really, for me, enlightening to sit down and be able to have those kind of conversations and talk about specific things that I think would be beneficial to our listeners, but agreed, selfishly, for myself. So hopefully it benefited everybody, but it was fun to really connect with a lot of people in the industry.
I hope the listeners liked it too, but even if they didn't, I had a blast. So just kidding, guys.
One day they're going to go back and say, man, I'm so glad that Brittany and Rebecca talked to all those people because now I can go back and listen to them a million times over.
Exactly. So on that topic, I think we have decided that we are going to share our top 5 interviews, our key takeaways from over the year. And we each have a list of 5. We can just kind of go back and forth and share what our top 5 interviews were and what the takeaways were from those. So would you like to go first?
Sure, absolutely will. And I have to just preface this by saying, I don't know that these were my top 5, because honestly, I think there were so many great takeaways from so many people, but honestly, those were probably the people I was really excited to connect with on a podcast, where you just kind of sit and just kind of go back and forth and have great conversation, because I honestly loved everybody that was on our podcast. Don't want anyone to feel left out. How's that?
100%. Yes.
Definitely the one who doesn't want anyone to feel left out ever. I'm kind of working backwards, but we've had a couple guests on our show that have come on more than once. And one of my favorite ones, and always will be to talk with in general, is always Kara Kelly. She's one of my favorite people. She just lays it out there. She doesn't care what you think. But she has so much information and has such an enlightening, open your mind and you just kind of are blown away. My gosh, really? That's happening? That's already happened and I didn't know. But, she specializes in HR, the upcoming law changes, how they're going to affect offices. And in one of her episodes, we got really deep into how some of the election changes, I don't want to go into politics, but sometimes political changes can make a huge change and effect in our industry in general that can have a huge effect in our practices in particularly laws that can get passed and then they get retroactively taken away, and how that ends up affecting our dental practices, in particularly the one that happened just this year in our practices with the salary caps and those changes where they had been given and now they retroactively been taken away, and how that's affecting our teams going forward.
I have also, Kara's fantastic. I'm appreciative that we got to have her on the show. Rethinking it, making a top 5 is hard. It's bringing me back to MySpace days when you had to publicly rank your friends, and I don't like it.
No, that's why I was like, oh my gosh, they're not my top 5, but There's like everybody brings a magnificent insight, and that's what the whole podcast is about, right? So
100%. And I have been fortunate enough to be able to connect with Kara a few different times outside of the podcast because of the relationship fostered in here. She's given me some HR tips. She's going to help me write my handbook. So definitely was a fantastic guest to have on the show.
Yeah. She and I are friends and have been for a while, so I love having her here. So love it.
Well, speaking of friends, one of my best friends, one of my favorite humans, was interviewed on the show very early on, Miss Jayna Swan. Jayna is a neuro-linguistic programming coach, so she talks all about like psychology and how that affects how you show up and about communication. And she's also my speaking coach, so she helps me with my public speaking and delivery. On the episode, we talked about listening to how people talk and using that to learn what their learning style is. So if people say like, I see that you, or do you understand what I'm saying? Or do you hear what I'm saying? Those types of things, like talk about how people's learning styles are and tell you a lot about it. And I use that every day when I'm talking to my team, when I'm talking to my clients. So yeah, great episode in general. Awesome to have her on the show.
Yeah, I definitely after that episode caught myself in the way I was saying things and like, oh my gosh, are people judging me? People and then am I saying that the right way? And oh my gosh. And then I just said, you know what? You either love me or you don't. So
there we go. I had a meeting with her actually right before this interview. She's speaking at my upcoming event. And I always find myself like sitting up taller and talking in a more calm demeanor when I'm talking to her. And just like I mirror the energy she gives, and she like tones me down so much.
Yeah, I definitely just want to give you everything I have. I'm super pumped, and you're just going to get it. I definitely won't be talking to you like this because
it feels
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Unless I lost my... That's awesome.
All right.
Wow.
Who's your number 2, Rebecca?
All right. My next one I had written down, of course, and this maybe takes me back to that calm, quiet voice, is always my favorite Lois Banta. I love her. She is such a great speaker, and probably because she's been speaking for a really long time, but also is so full of energy in her own way, but definitely not in a loud voice, right? Like me. And so she always speaks on so many great topics, but in our episode with her, she definitely went into talking about things I think our offices and people that we coach and we are working with, team collaboration, right? Oh my gosh, we're always trying to get our teams to come together. She gave us some great ideas. Retreats, right? I love a really good retreat. Get away with just a handful of people, right? And you can just sit in a room and just hash out anything. I have this idea. What do you think? Oh, try this, those kind of things. Things we do before we get on our podcast together, right? So we all love those kind of collaborations and times where we can just share ideas. She's a big and has always been a really big influencer in the insurance world for a long time. So I always love any updates or little heads up that she can give our listeners, our clients, anyone that we are working with. But of course, selfishly me, in the insurance world, because it's an ever-changing landscape, of course. And of course, something, I don't know about you and your clients, but this year, one of the things that we've talked a lot about has been how to effectively schedule. Doctors just want to be busy. Busy, 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 room. Don't want to go to my office just all day long. Teams feel that way too sometimes, right? I don't want to see the doctor. Just because if he comes to the front desk, then it's like, what are you doing? What's going on? How come my schedule's not full? So I really loved all of her suggestions in giving us enlightenment to keeping our schedules effectively scheduled so the doctor can stay busy all day.
For sure. I'm loving how we did not plan this, but like we're able to like ping pong off of each other so well. Because my next one, is
connected in the brain somehow. I just know it.
Exactly. There's like a telepathic connection right from me to you.
For sure.
My next one is Zeke Damowski, who came on also pretty early on in the show. We talked about marketing and SEO. So on the topic of how to keep your schedule full and manage it, we talked about the difference between SEO and ads and how to build a budget for marketing, which I have been able to apply in my own business. So that's also been great. And learning more about like algorithms and SEO and ads and what goes into all of that stuff. I love to nerd out about that stuff. And he does too. So it was a great chat. And he did not hold back. He gave us tons of information in a way that was really digestible and easy to use. And like I said, I reference back to that interview and re-listen to it when I'm working on new SEO type projects for my business. So that was huge for me. It was a great chat, and just overall, he's Midwestern, so he's just the sweetest. So it's also just great to be able to chat.
Oh, I don't know. Is South Dakota Midwestern?
I'm declaring it. Midwest.
This episode, you're going to declare that? Okay.
Yes, I'm going to Google it after this because I've also said Michigan is Midwest for my whole life. And someone from Michigan the other day told me it's actually not Midwest, it's East Coast. And I'm like, okay, but like, I don't know.
I'm going to challenge that, but I'm also going to challenge that South Dakota, who is just like 8 hours from my house in Denver, Colorado, is definitely, it's north. I don't think it's Midwestern, but you get back to me. Let me know.
I'll Google it later. Yeah. Listeners, feel free to follow us on Instagram and let us know your thoughts on where South Dakota falls.
That's right. And Zeke, if you're listening to this episode, we would appreciate your feedback on if you are a Midwesterner or if you are a, Coloradan really at heart. I know you are, but we can talk about that.
Colorado. So, well, the true test is, Zeke, do you say OPE? If you say OPE, you get an honorary Midwest stamp, whether you're Midwestern or not. Them's the rules.
I would just like to add to that, Zeke, who spoiled your family rotten a couple weeks ago? That would be me. Okay, that's the end of the discussion. You are not a Midwestern.
Okay, well, on to the next.
Okay, on to the next. Is that me? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll stay, again, I think we're synced up really well, a lot with the SEO and some of those like techie kind of things. Loved our conversation with Connor Ludlow, who is coming out with a lot of things we're talking about recently, which is the tech side of AI, automation in our offices, and his company, Annie, who is helping with automating phone conversations with patients, the phone, people texting in and creating, honestly, the most amazing idea and concept that offices can work with when you are feeling like your front office team is being torn between the phone or the patient standing in front of them, and allowing his product, Annie, to answer the phone for you. And it's trained, right, to answer questions according to the information you provide it, to be able to help your patients and answer those text messages right through your like Google, your website, those kind of things, which again, new, it's all coming out. It's all technology, maybe somewhat associated with the SEO side. I'm not quite sure, but
we'll allow it.
Anything we can do to help our offices, right? We're stressed, We're overwhelmed, we have lots to do, and the whole side of virtual assistants and AI and phones and automating insurance verifications, the whole platform is what's changing a lot of insights for practices to be more efficient, effective, and proficient.
I use AI every single day, so I am a huge component for it. I wish, every day. I wish I could have AI answer my phones because I'm a millennial and I don't like to answer the phone.
And your text messages and all those things. Well, maybe Annie could do that for you. Yeah.
Might get a little confusing around here because my daughter's name is Anna, but that's okay. We'll make it work.
It's
Annie answering.
It's
exactly.
Annie.
Yes. We'll make the
probably doesn't like her name being cut short either. So you probably could shoot out. Okay.
Exits the show dramatically.
Where's the mic? Drop?
I know, right? Don't drop this mic. She was expensive, but in theory.
Yeah, just pretend. Make the sound, right?
There we go. Speaking of mic drops, my next one is somebody that I have looked up to for a very long time. I refer to him regularly as the GOAT. he is the coding wizard, Greg Grovemeyer, and I can't say enough good things about that conversation. We learned about documentation, about all the little nuances that go into an ADA code that aren't written in that booklet. You actually need the coding companion to learn. And we learned about the dangers of using the wrong code and some codes that like most practices aren't utilizing but should be because they're doing the work. So there's missed opportunities that offices had, and we talked about all of those as well. In general, just a great conversation. He's like amateur stand-up comic, so it was a really dry, boring conversation. I had an absolute blast, and it was a great episode to record and to listen back to because I do listen to our episodes. It was one that I didn't even get cringy listening to myself talk during, so that was always a win too.
I can't listen to myself.
I'm getting used to it now as a podcast host, but that's a skill that takes a long time to get over.
All right, listeners, if you're listening to this, you let us know. Are we good to listen to? Not good to listen to? Give us some feedback. We want
to give that feedback right to Rebecca. I do not want it.
I can take that constructive criticism or not constructive criticism. I definitely want to know for sure. So I will follow up that one with, again, one of my absolute favorites as well, which is one of the Mint Door ladies, which is Laura Schwint. And I absolutely could sit and listen to her share her wisdom all day long. Absolute favorite. She has so much wisdom from the fact that she started out as a dentist herself, got burnt out, and then went into coaching and helping other dentists and leaders in our industry who are in the same kind of position. And everything about them is just completely zen. I love it. Their logo to their conference or their speaking topics. I just got done attending one of Laura's most recent presentations, and same thing. You walk away with not just feeling like you've got a good message, but you know it's a really good presentation when you walk away with, you know exactly what you're going to go do with a list, right? Like, I know exactly what I'm going to go do now, and I know what I need to do to be more happy, to be more productive, to be more whatever the presentation's on. And that's why I just really love being a part of her circle. I'm just going to say that. I'm probably part of her circle. And I love being inside of her Mint Door, really literally, because I feel like she has given some great tips and wisdom. She's been one of my personal coaches and has really been one of those people that just lifts you and you don't even know it. I just love Laura Schwint with the Mint Door.
One of those episodes, every episode that I've ever missed, I've been bummed to miss. But that was one of those ones, like, we've both been on their show, so we had them on our show, and I was so bummed to have to miss that one because having gone through burnout as well and then trying to, like, rebound, I feel super connected to their message. So anytime I get to engage with either or both of the Mint Door gals, I always leave just feeling so much more like,
you do.
What you want, right?
You don't even realize it. Like, you just walk out and you're like, wow, my shoulders have dropped and I just feel my whole body, right? So Laura Schwint and Karen Tyndall are the two Mint Door ladies, and together they are just a perfect pair of dentists that can just help you really determine what's helping you, what's causing the burnout and helping you fix it. I love it.
Well, when you do feel burnt out and you need to maybe get some extra people in your corner, you would call upon, these segues are killing it. You would call upon Dr. Paul Goodman, who helped us learn about which associates to hire, when to hire associates, what that whole process looks like. And even if he talked about literally nothing all day, it would have been a great conversation because he has just the funniest metaphors for things, and everything is so thought out and it just makes sense. I feel like he talks to me like I'm a kindergartner, but not in a condescending way, in a way that's just really easy to understand. So absolutely love that chat. Plus another, all of our guests are so cool, and I just the whole conversation was great, and I learned a lot, and I had people reach out that they've also learned a lot from that episode. So it was a really meaningful one for me, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And not just about nachos and your favorite topping.
Although nachos do sound great right now.
I'm definitely hungry. Okay, so have you been on one of their episodes, or have you been a guest?
No.
Okay, then I won't say anything.
Okay, cool.
Because there is something cool about being a guest on their podcast that makes you really think about nachos. I'll just say that.
Well, I will have to put a feeler out on that one. My goal on 2025 was to actually go on podcasts instead of just hosting my own. So
yeah, I love it. I love being a guest just as much as I love interviewing on our podcast too. So that's goal for you. Get on Paul Goodman. Paul Goodman, we're calling to you to have Brittany on your podcast because she needs to answer that question that you ask all your guests at the beginning of the podcast. Okay, that carries me in awesome to my last one. Wait, is this our last one?
You have one more, I have one more.
Yep. Okay, great. You get to end it. I love it. So to my last, which will always carry a really, really special place in my heart, which is Colleen Huff, as she was someone who, when I left my first career and came into my second career, which was dentistry, Colleen was just one of the sweetest people I've ever met who just, this is so great. And I didn't realize it till later that she was like this really fantastic speaker and mentor to so many people. And she treated me like I was just one of her best friends. And it really meant a lot starting out. But, as we had her on our show, she, of course, as we all know, is the insurance person. She knows everything about what's coming on with insurance and changes, and really great tidbits that she shared with our listeners to help us all, of course, be able to file our claims and not have them denied and all those things. But the thing I was really excited about was her book that she put out, and was so excited to have her on so that she could share her book with us. And hopefully everybody's gone to get it.
A mouthful of insurance.
A mouthful of insurance. And I just want everyone to go find it. Purple cover, so you can't miss it on the shelves. And it's an easy read, so it's not overwhelming, but it's full of information, especially if you're new to insurance, or if you want a really good quick read just overviewing insurance, which of course is an ever-changing world. But I was so excited to have her come and share her book with us and our listeners. And a shout out to Colleen Huff. Thanks for being a marvelous friend.
Aww. I really loved that episode, and having that, we have multiple copies of her book in our office. My team is sick of listening to me talk all the time. So trying to give them my book to read, they were like, I'm good. So having someone else say the words, I think really helped with both of them too. So my team was able to read the book, and it was definitely a conversation point for us. So glad that she came on the show, told me about the book so we could share it with my team. So awesome episode. Great guest. Way to end on a strong foot on that one. My very last guest is, drumroll, Dr. Grace Young. She is the mommy dentist in business, owner, CEO, founder, and her message has resonated with me from day one because I had small kids when I started my business, and trying to struggle with learning how to mom and then learning how to entrepreneur at the same time is just such a crazy thing. And there's not a lot of people who can relate to that. So we talked about work-life balance. We talked about her Facebook group. We talked about her speaking events and just all the things that she does to make a big impact on moms who are in dentistry, specifically moms who are dentists, and how to try and balance that, especially being in a more male dominant industry in the first place. So it was full of tons of takeaway, and just I felt like I was having a conversation with someone I've known for a really long time. It was so relatable. And I think she had pink headphones, which I was just obsessed with because now I want to get myself some pink headphones. I know, right? Dear Santa, please send me pink headphones. When I show up to our next interview and I have my pink ones, you'll know.
That's right.
Awesome. So this has been super fun to kind of look back on the last year and our episodes that we particularly mentioned have spanned over the last year. But I want to ask our listeners as well to let us know, what were your top 5? Was it ones that we mentioned, ones that we didn't? And I also want to thank every single guest, not just the ones that we listed today, because every conversation was incredibly special to me. I know they were special to you as well, Rebecca, and we've been very fortunate with the people that we've got to interview on this show.
I also would love to throw out to our listeners, is there a topic we haven't touched on this year that you would love to have us touch on? Or do you know someone who would be a great guest on our show to come and speak on a certain topic? We're always welcoming to anyone who would love to come and share something on our podcast with our listeners. So throw any of those out there for us. We'd love it.
This is a great time to remind you guys, if you don't already, follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. We're on all of them. So follow us on all those places and let us know what your thoughts are, because this show, obviously we do it for us because it's fun and we get to hang out once a week, but we also do this mainly for you guys. So it's your show. We're just running it. So let us know what you want. Our signature question for the end of the episode. I would like to try a different approach to it this time, just because why not? Because I've asked you this question 3 times already, so we'll put a spin on it.
Into a new year. So what's our new question going to be? So what is it?
Bookmark that, because this won't be the question for everybody. What has been your decoding moment that you have found, or your top takeaway from being a podcast host, whether it be something that a guest gave you or something that you've learned across the way? What has been your decoding, your secret code of the year?
As a podcast host, I think honestly, for me as a person, I know I'm very planned. I'm very OCD. I really like to know, like, I want to have it laid out, right? And let's be honest, podcasting is not at all planned. We have no idea, right? What we're even going to say, right? We just get on here and we just go with it. But same with our guests, right? We can have an idea of what our topic's going to be that they want to come on here and talk about. But I think for me, the best takeaway for me is to just learn to take a little zen, right? It's okay. And sit back and just let it go and be really happy with just having fun with our guests, having fun with each other, and just enjoying what people want to share and enjoying that moment, just being in the moment. Maybe that's the moment. That's my decoding thing I've taken away, is just to be in the moment and enjoy the conversation that I'm in.
Love it. Beautiful.
Okay, well, Brittany, I have a question for you too with our listeners. Okay. What has been your takeaway as our host of Dental Decoders that you've taken away?
Ooh, this question has caught me by surprise.
I know, sometimes we do that with our hosts and our guests, is we like to throw things a little curveball to see how well. And I'd really appreciate it with this answer if you could please keep your voice very level. And if you could just take your shoulders back just a little bit, even though no one's watching us. Could you there we go. Okay, what's your answer?
My answer is that I need to see a chiropractor because this is super uncomfortable. But in all seriousness, one thing that I learned most as a podcast host, outside of like equipment and mics and technology, because that was a whole thing, but my key takeaway would be that no two people, regardless of if they have the same niche, have the same message. And just to really lean into that authentic version of yourself, because that is going to resonate with a different group of people than a quote unquote competitor might resonate with. So be true to your own voice. There are tons of people who do the same thing that you and I do, that everybody else does. It's the way we do it that makes us special. So just lean into that authentic version of yourself and really run with it.
I love that. That's great too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Rebecca. Listeners, thanks for listening. And here's to another year of Dental Decoders.
Thanks, everyone. It's been an amazing year.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Dental Decoders podcast. We hope you took away a valuable piece of information. As always, don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to help us build our community of dental decoders. We look forward to seeing you for next week's episode.